Namaskar viewers, a warm welcome to the new Facebook Live series of India Tourism Kolkata. We are going to organize this Facebook Lives on Bengal by the Himalayas, a tribute to Dekho Apna Desh scheme of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Yes, we are going through an unusual time, a new normal, and of course, traveling may be a word of luxury for many of us now. However, we hope that the nationwide initiative of unlocking the country, unlocking different parts, and keeping the life, the pace in normal, trying to keep the things in normal way, we will succeed pretty soon. We all pray for the best. In today's Facebook Live, we are going to bring you the stories of Singalila National Park and Sandakphu, to be very precise. Sandakphu is the most famous trekking route of West Bengal and Bengal Himalayas. Sandakphu is the first love, the point of transition for many of us, which has made us a traveler indeed. It has transformed our inner self. It has transformed us from a general tourist to an explorer, to a traveler. So today we'll discover Sandakphu. But how many of us identify Sandakphu as something more, something like a trivia? It's not just a trekking route. It gives us the opportunity to explore the wildlife. Red panda. Yes, viewers. Red panda. You don't need to go to China or Japan to spot a red panda. Sandakphu provides us the unique opportunity of viewing, spotting red pandas and also many of the indigenous birds. It also gives us the opportunity, the perfect opportunity to spend and mix and blend ourselves with the local community, the pure souls, the heart. So today, to take us to this wonderful journey through Sandakphu and Singalila National Park, we have among us two of the best explorers of our travel community, Mr. Partha Guha, an ex-corporate who used to work as a stock analyst before, and when the passion for finance turned into tourism, he became a successful entrepreneur day by day. He has introduced Alpine Nature Beyond and now a proud owner of Humro home brand. The other speaker, the co-owner or director of Alpine Nature Beyond Private Limited, Mr. Pallab Bhattacharya, is a known explorer, travel guide in a sense, or a facilitator, truly a facilitator who can facilitate tourists, who can give us some new experience in these, even the conventional routes of Sandakphu or beyond Sandakphu. So also we have among us Mr. Bishwarup. Bishwarup is a famous ornithologist. He is a birding guide for who takes us with the minute details of birds and wildlife which is hidden in this Himalayan paradise. So we'll go through this wonderful journey beginning with Pallab Bhattacharya. Pallab, welcome to the show. Please introduce you to our viewers.
Hello, welcome viewers, and very good evening to all of you. I first thank the India Tourism Kolkata for initiating this beautiful program, Bengal by the Himalayas, and giving us the opportunity to talk about our land. Today, we are going to talk about the most beautiful landscape area of Bengal, as Shayok already informed you, Singalila National Park. So I will first go to the slide here. I'm just sharing my screen. I hope it is It is visible. So Singalila National Park, that is also very popular among the people of Bengal in particular as Sandakphu and Pallab, because of the very popular trek that goes to the highest part of Bengal at 3,600 meters. Because of its incredible landscape beauty, it is always a dream for every trekker to come to Sandakphu at least once in a lifetime, if not more. I have actually done this trek several times and in different months. And each month has its own color, own charm. Interestingly, Sandakphu and Singalila has 6 seasons, like spring, which is March and April, where the colors are in full bloom, the entire valleys of rhododendron and magnolias. Then you have summer, and then monsoon is not possible to go there because the park remains closed from June 15 to September 15. But again, monsoon is also very beautiful because of the cloud formation, and the landscape changes dramatically with the very lush greenery everywhere. And sorry, some distance. And then again, autumn, which has a beautiful color during the autumn time in October and November, and then fall and winter. But Sandakphu is popular not only for trekking. There are several other aspects, other interesting elements which makes it very popular. We are going to explore all the possibilities that is actually available in Sandakphu, which makes it very popular. And rather, we'll take you to a visual journey through some beautiful slides and pictures and video clips. As one picture tells 1,000 words. So you are roughly going to have about 40,000 words from this show. But you have to discover the stories behind it. But now I'm passing it to Partha, my counterpart, who will tell you more about the connection between 2 countries, Nepal and India, which is actually the Singalila National Park actually connects these 2 countries. So I'm passing it to Partha. So over to you, Partha.
Thank you, Pallab. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Shayok and the India Tourism team for allowing us this opportunity. It's great to be here. Sandakphu is very close to our heart. I mean, for most people from Eastern India who love hills, who has been trekking, who has been mountaineering, who has been going to the hills, Sandakphu is very close to our heart. And in many cases, it is basically because we started our treks from Sandakphu. For example, myself, I trekked to Sandakphu for the first time in 1988, a very long time back, 32 years back. And that is how I started trekking and fall in love with the Himalayas. So I remember when we started our first trek to Sandakphu in 1988, we traveled from Siliguri in a bus to a place named Manibhanjan. So that is the starting point for any trek to Sandakphu. Next day morning, you wake up and start your trek right from Manibhanjan. Although this is also possible to start your trek from Darjeeling, because from Darjeeling to Manibhanjan is just a 45 minutes to 1 hour's drive. From Siliguri, that is Bagdogra Airport or NJP rail station, also Manibhanjan would be about 3 hours drive. So we started the trek from Manibhanjan, and within 10 to 15 minutes, I started to feel like probably I had taken a wrong decision to go for this trek. Because what I immediately face is a steep climb. From Manibhanjan to the next place, which is Chitre, The distance is probably about 1 or 1.5 kilometers, and you climb close to 1,000 feet within this short distance. And the newbies like us at that time, who had just started trekking, didn't know what we were going to get. It was totally exhausting. We stopped, had water, and then again walked a few steps. That way somehow reached Chitre. But once we reached Chitre, the view itself, made up for all the exhaustions that we had to face to climb up to there. Towards our back, towards the south, we could see Kashyang, we could see Mirik, we could see the plains of Terai. Towards the west, we could see the Nepal hills. And to the north, we could see Kanchenjunga. Chitre at that point of time didn't have any accommodation. Nowadays, we have homestays and trekkers' huts in Chitre. There is a large monastery which has also come up at Chitre. So it is possible to start your trek at Chitre itself rather than at Manebhanjan, because the Manebhanjan to Chitre road is also quite well motorable, and your vehicle can take you to Chitre and you can start your trek from there itself. From Chitre to Sandakphu is a continuous ridge. It's not continuous in the sense there are certain breaks, but more or less it is one singular ridge. And you can start from there, and the inclination is not very high. So anyone with good physical fitness can undertake this trek. They don't need to have any experience. In fact, I remember in my first trek in 1988 that I was talking about, we had one young girl from schools, for whom it was the first travel to anywhere in the hills. She has never been to the hills, and the first time she went to the hills, she went to Sandakphu. So that is also possible if you have basic fitness. The one attraction of Sandakphu is that you get to see Kanchenjunga in its full glory straight ahead of you almost throughout the trek, because you are trekking on a ridge. And actually this ridge not only ends, it doesn't end in Sandakphu, it continues to Phalud, and then this ridge continues to Sikkim. It enters Sikkim through the west of Himalayas region, and it continues to reach almost to the base of Kanchenjunga mountain itself. So this is a long ridge, and throughout this 3-day trek, 2 to 3-day trek from Manebhanjan to Sandakphu, the whole period you see Kanchenjunga in front of you in its full glory, as if it is calling you towards itself. As you know, the entire Darjeeling Sikkim region is very popular among tourists because of the view of Kanchenjunga, and getting to see it for 2 or 3 consecutive days, full day during your work, that itself is a very nice and experience. Also, the ridge I'm talking about is the border between India and Nepal. It is an open border. On your west, that is on your left-hand side when you are trekking towards Sandakphu, would be Nepal, and on your east, that is on your right-hand side, would be India. And you are walking right on the border itself. So there are occasional couple of 2 or 3 SSB camps, or maybe 1 or 2 cases where you have some Nepal police checkpost, but broadly this entire border is unguarded, unmanned. There is no barricade or no wall, or no one stopping you from going from one side to the other. It's an open border. On both sides, the people are the same, their culture is the same, their language is the same, their dress is the same, their hospitality is the same. So sometimes you don't even feel like you are, crossing the border every few minutes, maybe. The night, the trekker's hut where you are staying in the night, or the breakfast where you are having a breakfast, those places might be in Nepal or might be in India. You may not even know. this is especially, I mean, I feel significant in today's times when we have so much border conflict. So we can have that kind of border also, where if you fail to recognize the border. But for young people like us at that point of time, it was quite amusing to cross over to Nepal once and to come back to India again. And this was a very interesting start for our trek. I would request Pallab to take us through the entire route through a visual journey. Over to Pallab, please.
Yeah, thank you, Partha. So I think I'm visible, or the screen is visible now? Okay, so thank you, Partha, for your input and the story behind the borders. Now I'm going to take you to a visual journey, or rather digitally, because during this absurd time where we are all very much home-centric, and we are actually forced to adapt to the new normals and doing most of the things from home, like working from home, meeting from home, studying and shopping from home. So why can't we also travel from home? Maybe someday it becomes a reality, so you have to see. If I just play the video, you can see the red point here, the red marking, which is actually our point of discussion, the Sandakphu, which lies on the border between Nepal and India. If we zoom in there, once you reach to the top of that hill, which is the highest point of Bengal at 3,600 meters or 12,000 feet in the altitude, the entire valley opens to you, and you have a 360-degree view of the greater Himalayan ranges, which is amazing, and a spellbound beauty is in front of you. And this is the ridge that you can see. This is actually called the Singalila ridge, which Partha has already informed that it goes to Sikkim, and finally it connects with the greater Himalayan ranges. If you walk for 1.5 days from here, you will reach Sikkim. And on your left to the west, it is Nepal, and you are actually walking on the border. And you have these beautiful mountains before you. But you need to have very good weather to see all these mountains, because at this altitude, it is always a possibility that it is clouded, and suddenly becomes clouded and misty and covers up the entire landscape surrounding you. But it also has a different charm of its own. When you see the hide and seek between sun, cloud, and hills, it gives a different feeling altogether. So I will come to the next stage, a little bit history of Singalila National Park, or that Singalila Ridge. This ridge, this trail actually has a reference which dates back to 1905, about 115 years back, when a British-led expedition team actually initiated the first ever expedition to Mount Kanchenjunga. That was an unsuccessful attempt though, but it was the first attempt, and they used this trail, originated from Darjeeling and then went to Kanchenjunga area from here. And historically, it is the land of this Singalila National Park. It belonged to the Kingdom of Sikkim. And before around 250 years back, the British actually took that land from Sikkim on lease. It is a little surprising why they were so interested in that part at that time. Maybe they saw the potential of timber, which is very valuable. There are different kind of timbers available in the different forest type, and that was very valuable for them to make some construction works like roads and railway track. But later, during the independence, it became a part of Bengal and Darjeeling, and then in 1986, it became a national park, which is the highest national park in Bengal and one of the highest in the entire Northeast Himalayas. And because of this altitude variance, which starts from 7,000 feet to 10,000 feet in altitude, Sandakphu area and Singalila National Park is very rich in different forest covers. You can see the moist deciduous forest to subalpine forest cover and shrublands, and also the bamboo, which is also a very good habitat for red panda. And interestingly, this forest cover also produce amazing colors. In different months of the year, it has different colors. Like for example, if you go just after the monsoon, it is completely lush green. And the same forest within next 2 months will become a riot of colors, splashing colors, a vivid display of this shading trees of maple and chestnut, and they all started shading it. But this is still not a very perfect picture. If you go to the right time, like middle of October and end of October, you see the entire valley is full of color. And again in spring, in April and March, it is again a riot of color with rhododendron of different types and magnolia. They are in full bloom. And when you are trekking through these trails, it is like walking through the Eden Gardens, and it's a delightful experience for the trekkers, particularly in the spring. And because of this varied habitats and different type of vegetation, Sandakphu is also a very prominent place for the bird watchers. It can be a haven for the bird watchers who want to see the Himalayan species. Over 300 species of birds have been recorded in this national park. And for this, actually, we have Bishop Raut with us, who is also a very prominent bird watcher and bird expert from Northeast Himalayas, who has traveled very extensively in different parts of the Himalayas and has made different journals and publications, and has a lot of record and evidence of different species. So we are very happy he is here with us, and I will request Bishop Leo to tell us about his experience on the birding of Singalila National Park. So over to you, Bishop Leo.
First of all, thanks Pallab and thanks Partha for requesting me to come over along with you guys. And I also extend my gratitude to India Tourism for providing all of us with this nice opportunity to talk about the Singalila National Park and Sandakphu Trek, to be most precise. As Pallab and Partha has already given you a lot of inputs about the location and the boundary of the Singalila National Park and this particular Singalila Ridge, and also the type of the forest. I won't go too much into those details, but one thing I must say here, that there is a difference between the geography of the Himalayas and the availability of flora and fauna in the Himalayas. Like now, we know that basically the entire part of Nepal is considered to be the central Himalayas. And it is only from Sikkim Darjeeling area the eastern Himalaya starts. But if we go into the birding sense, it is different. It's different because according to the ornithologists, the species variation starts east of the Kaligandaki Gorge, which is in Nepal. So this region from the Kaligandaki Gorge, if you travel to the east, all the way across Arunachal into Burma, falls within the eastern Himalayas biome. And this region houses a lot of species that you don't find anywhere else in the whole world. So this is a region of species endemism or regional endemism. That means those species you find in this area, you find them nowhere else on this earth. When we talk about birding in Singalila National Park, we have got to keep in mind the altitudinal variation of the Singalila National Park. That is, Pallab has already said that it extends from around 7,000 feet to 12,000 feet at its highest point. So, in most of the areas, since the altitude starts from 7,000 feet, in most of the areas of the Singalila National Park, what we get is either a moist temperate forest or wet temperate forest. And towards the northern part, the vegetation changes to the subalpine type. That is the Sandakphu area and beyond it, where we have these subalpine meadows, the small bushes, kind of Now, coming to the birding part, the Singalila National Park is famous for many of the bamboo species, since as Pallab has already said that it consists a lot of portion consists of bamboo, which is a favorite of the red panda. So since there is a very good growth of bamboo in Singalila National Park, it houses a lot of bamboo species. And what are the bamboos? What are the species that we generally find in the bamboo habitat? When you talk about bamboo, the first thing that occurs to any bird watcher is the parrotbill. And Sandakphu houses as many as 4 varieties of parrotbill of the eastern Himalayas. The rarest of all the parrotbills that you find in Singalila is, of course, the great parrotbill. And it is one of the very few places in the eastern Himalayas where you have got very good opportunity to see these very, very rare species. Apart from the great parrotbill, the other parrotbills that you generally find in Singalila is, of course, the brown parrotbill, which is kind of more common. In the lower reaches of Singalila, you get the black-throated parrotbill. And another very rare but very cute parrotbill is the fulvous-breasted parrotbill, which is another bamboo specialty. It is the species that you also get to see in the Singalila National Park. There has been quite a lot of research work going on in the Singalila National Park over the years, and during one of those research works, the researchers were surprised to find the evidence of the chestnut-breasted hill partridge. We also call this the Arborophila mandeli. This is actually a very threatened species, and there are very few pockets in the entire part of eastern Himalayas where this species occur. Surprisingly, this species was found between Tumling and Gairibash in the Singalila National Park, and it was a matter of great joy for this species in this Sandakphu trail. Another species which is worth looking for in the Singalila National Park is, of course, the black pheasant. This happens to be the state bird of Sikkim. Though it's found in the eastern Sikkim in much more numbers, the Singalila Ridge or the Singalila National Park is a very good place to look for the species. In the recent years, due to the construction of the road work, the habitat of the species has got a bit disturbed. And because previously one would also get right on the chip trail. But in recent years, due to the disturbance made by the construction of the concrete road, has caused a little bit of alarm for the species. But I am very confident that any keen bird watcher who is ready to spend his time and energy looking for this species is surely going to get it there. But why Singalila? Singalila? There are a lot of places in the eastern Himalayas to go birding for. Because Singalila is one of the best places in the entire world to look for a very, very gorgeous species. It's called the satyr tragopan. And the other name for the species is called the crimson horned pheasant. As you can see on the slide, that the color of the bird is crimson, and when it makes the display during the mating season, there are two horns that spring up by the side of its crown, and hence the name. Seeing this bird in the Singalila National Park against the backdrop of this just like a flame in the forest. And birders from all over the world comes to Singalila looking for this. Seeing this bird in the wild is a truly, truly amazing experience. In addition to the satyr tragopan, the other species which are very attractive. It will be my discredit if I don't mention the name of the firetail myzonis. It's a pretty beautiful green bird with a red tail, and the best season to look for this bird is when the rhododendron is in the full bloom, and it often comes to the rhododendron flowers to feed on the pollen. And many of the photographs of this small little bird, you will see the pollen get stuck in its face area, which makes it evident that it has been feeding on it. Also, there are a couple of varieties of udaul in Singalila National Park. There are 2-3 varieties of accentus. There are a lot of variety of rose finches. There are a lot of variety of tits. The beautiful firetail sunbird and the Mrs. Gold sunbird. They're all here. And there's also a big array of laughing thrush spread all over the Singalila National Park. So I invite my birder friends to come over to Singalila for birding. See it for yourself, and take back with you the experience, the unique experience of Eastern Himalayan birding. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bishopio. It was very useful information and delightful to know that so many bird species are actually available in this national park. It would be definitely an amazing experience for the bird watchers. So they must hurry before these birds finally disappear. So coming to the next part of wildlife in Singalila, we already have the mention of red panda already by Shayok and also by Bishopio. That Sandakphu is also a very interesting area to observe red panda in the wild. This is a very cute little species which is from the bear family and which is only available in the eastern part of the Himalayas. But Sandakphu is very important because being a small national park of about 70-75 square kilometer, Sandakphu has a very good population of red panda. Around 35 to 40 numbers have been counted as far as I remember the last census conducted. But they live in both the sides of India and Nepal because they don't have any boundary, and Singalila also has a continuation to the Nepal side. And in both these areas, there are plenty in numbers, and it's a beautiful place and one of the perhaps the only place in the entire world where a special red panda tour focused basically on this animal is conducted and can be arranged here, which is very different from other kind of tours, but more similar of snow leopard tour, which happens in Ladakh in India. But to see that animal, it is very rare and very shy species. But if you stay in one particular place for 5 to 6 days and take the help of the expert local people who are also the conservationists and protecting the habitat and the population of red panda, you will be amazed to see their presence in the wild. And it is a dream for all the wildlife photographers to come to this park to capture this wild animal in the photographic frame. Very eminent wildlife photographers, including Bailey brothers, they have also come to Singalila National Park and made a beautiful documentary on this red panda. And also, this Singalila National Park is perhaps, and it is actually documented as the only place in the world to raise red panda in captive. They were bred in captive and then later released in Singalila National Park. That was the first incident in the entire world where red panda were raised in the zoo of Darjeeling Zoo and then later in the wild. But when you are trekking to Sandakphu and Falud, you may come across this red panda once in a while. But to see it in its natural form and natural habitat, a red panda tour, which is actually the best option for you. I have traveled so many times in Singalila National Park, but I was actually fortunate only once in my life when I saw this red panda somewhere near Goiribas area, which is the best habitat actually for red panda. And it was a different moment. It was amazing experience and cannot be forgotten in the entire life. When you see the red panda in the wild and suddenly the forest becomes so vibrant and you don't think about anything else. So this is one of the major attraction in the wildlife in Singalila. But apart from red panda, there are other very important mammals which is available here, like Himalayan black bear, clouded leopard, and common leopard. And shero is a very a rare goat antelope, which is available in the eastern part of Himalayas, which is very rare, but you can actually see it in Sandakphu area. And there are other smaller jungle cats and several other animals. So these are some of the images of red panda which you can expect when you see them in the wild, and this is a dream comes true experience. Certainly. Now I will again pass it on to Partha, who will tell us about the landscape beauty of Singalila National Park, about the peaks and the mountains that is available. So over to you, Partha.
Okay, thanks, Pallab. And while Vishwapriyo was talking about birds and Pallab was talking about red panda, this mountain peaks is what is most of the time visible to people if the weather is good, as Pallab has mentioned. And I was also looking at the Facebook feed of our presentation here. There has already been a couple of questions on the peaks that are visible during this trek. So let me mention that you actually get to see 4 of the top 5 peaks in the world from Sandakphu. Of course, we know that Kanchenjunga is very much visible. It's visible throughout your trek. And also, Everest is also visible. As you can see in this picture, you can see Mount Kanchenjunga on your right and the Mount Everest and its surrounding mountains on your left. Of course, Mount Everest is higher in altitude, but it is further. Mount Kanchenjunga is nearer to you. So that's why Mount Everest range looks slightly smaller. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Can you go to the Everest slide? Yeah, this slides actually shows the Everest group of mountains. As some of you might be interested to know, I mean, although the highest peak which is visible here is second from the right, that is not Everest. That is actually Mount Makalu. Makalu is the highest peak in the world. It is has an altitude of 8,481 meters, and this looks highest because it's closer to us. Okay, next to Makalu on its left is Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world. That is 8,848 meters, and next to Everest, you can also see Lhotse, which is the 4th highest peak in the world. Okay, so between this, apart from these 3, also we have Kanchenjunga, which is in a separate group. So, except for K2, that is of course in a different region, that is in Karakoram in Pakistan, which is the 2nd highest peak in the world. You can get to see number 1 peak, which is Mount Everest. You can see number 3 peak, which is Kanchenjunga. You get to see number 4 peak, which is Lhotse, and you get to see number 5, which is Makalu. This is a unique thing, and this is probably one of the very few places from where you can see both Everest and Kanchenjunga together and top 4 peaks of the world together. There are some other places like probably from Chintaphu in Nepal side, also you can get similar views, but it has to be this region itself. Okay, from any other region in the world you cannot get this view of the top 4 peaks. This is a picture of morning of the same range. Of course, you can see on the right-hand side, you can see the 3 peaks I have already talked about, the Everest and then the Lhotse and the Makalu. Everest in middle, Makalu on the right, and Lhotse on the left. And also you can see other peaks like So other peaks which are sub 8,000 but above 7,000 meters in altitude, which are also considered to be some of the highest peaks in the world. They are also visible in this group. Next is the Kanchenjunga range. Of course, Kanchenjunga range is visible to us. Can you go back to Kanchenjunga, the first slide that you had? Yes, this is the Kanchenjunga range, as is visible from Sandakphu. As is written also, you can see it is called the Sleeping Buddha. For the uninitiated who doesn't know why it is called Sleeping Buddha, you can look at the peaks which are visible. You can imagine the head of a person there, and the middle portion, which is obviously Kanchenjunga peak itself, and its surrounding peaks, can be considered to be the belly or the tummy of the person. And on the right hand side, there are 2-3 peaks which are visible. They can be considered the feet of the person. If you try to imagine that way, it looks like a person lying down. That's why this Kanchenjunga is called Sleeping Buddha. And this particular view, remember that the view that you get depends on the angle from which you are observing. So if you are observing from any other place, like if you are observing from Sikkim or Darjeeling, you will not get this typical Sleeping Buddha view that you get from Sandakphu. The head of the Sleeping Buddha that I was talking about is Kumbhakarna or Mount Janu. The two peaks on the extreme left, that is extreme left one is Kumbhakarna, and next to it, which is shaded, that is Kumbhakarna East, also known as Janu. There are 7,000 feet plus, between 7,000 meters and 8,000 meters, and these peaks are in the Nepal side. Okay, they are very much in the Nepal side. The extreme right is the peaks which fall in Sikkim. The one on which you have the light is Mount Pandim. Next to Mount Pandim, the two peaks which look slightly lower are Shimbo. These are peaks on the Sikkim side. This is a picture which is taken during the sunset, not during the sunrise. So light is coming from the west side. So if you observe this mountain range from, say, Darjeeling, you will not be able to see Kumbhakarna in such glory. Rather, there are a couple of other peaks which I'll be talking about slightly later, like Kabru, which will come up in prominence if you observe it from Darjeeling. So if you go further to Sikkim, for example, from South Sikkim, you won't get to see the Kumbhakarna, the Janu peak at all, because it is in Nepal. Okay, it is behind Kanchenjunga if you are looking at it from Sikkim's perspective. Much of what you get to see from Sikkim is Mount Pandim and Shimbo, and you get to see a part of Kanchenjunga from some places as well. So this is the left-hand side peaks and the right-hand side peaks. Now coming to the main peak, which is Kanchenjunga. It is, of course, easily understandable. The highest peak that you can see in the middle is Kanchenjunga. Also, I'd like to mention that this Kanchenjunga, actually, the middle of this picture is actually the India-Nepal border also, again, as I was mentioning. So the India-Nepal border continues over this mountain range, over Mount Kabru, north and south, and then Kanchenjunga, and continues that way. So anything that you see on the left-hand side of this picture is mostly, not everything, but mostly it is in Nepal. Whatever you see towards the right-hand side of this picture mostly is India. So that is Kanchenjunga. Kanchenjunga is, of course, there is as you can see, it looks like several peaks over there. There is a Kanchenjunga main, which is the third highest peak in the world, 8,586 meters. Also, there is Kanchenjunga South, Kanchenjunga Central, and Kanchenjunga West. There are different peaks. Now, if you look at from Kanchenjunga come down, there's a V kind of shape. In between the V shape, you can see light, and both sides you can see the shade. This V shape is called the saddle, And whenever you have expeditions from India side, which is also called Yalung Face, people climb through this saddle. So the V shape that I'm talking about, where left hand side is you have the sun rays and the right hand side is shadow. The climbing takes place through that particular area. Just left of this V shape, the left hand top of the V shape is Talung, Yalung. Further left of that, you have Kabru South and Kabru North, which are not so clearly visible from here. But if you are looking at it from Darjeeling, then this Kabru South and Kabru North is quite clearly visible. And in fact, I have seen from Kaohsiung, I have taken pictures where you can't even see Kanchenjunga, you can't even see other peaks, but Kabru South and Kabru North is clearly visible. So your view actually depends upon from where you are observing. Just left of Kabru, I don't know if you're not familiar with the mountain range, if it is clear to you. On just left of mountain, there is a small mountain which is also visible. It is Rathong. It is called Rathong Peak. Rathong has its own glacier, which is called Rathong Glacier. Also, you have Yalung has Yalung Glacier. Rathong Glacier is the origin of the river, which is called Rathong Chu there. Later on, that river becomes Rangit. Rangit is a very famous river here in our region. Rangit is actually the river which divides India and Sikkim. Okay, it's the river which then is a tributary to Tista at near Tista Bazar. So that Rangit river originates just below Rathong Peak. So there are other peaks also. There is Prey Peak, which is visible. The entire range of this Zongri Gochala side is also visible, but not getting into too much into technicalities. So this gives you a broad idea about the peaks which are visible from Sandakphu. Over back to Pallab again.
Okay, thank you, Partha, for this detailed explanation about these mountain peaks, which is very enriching actually. I have just played a small video here to show you how the mountains of the Kanchenjunga, the sleeping Buddha, looks like during the sunrise. So it's definitely a spellbound experience when you see these mountains during sunrise and you have a clear weather like this. So I just need to pause for a moment and just let you see the movie. So Sandakphu, as you already know, that it is a hiker's paradise. Because the terrain and the landscape beauty, it is also considered to be the easiest hike and considered as a beginner's hike. Because I know many people who has actually came for the first time and started their trekking experience with Sandakphu, trek to Sandakphu. It is around 75 kilometers, the entire trek, which starts from Manibhanjan and goes all the way to Phalut and then Srikhola and Rimbik. So entire journey is about 75 kilometers, but it is fairly easy in most of the places, except for certain areas, particularly on the first phase when you are starting from Manibhanjan to Chitre. That part is fairly steep, but particularly the last part when you are actually ascending finally to Sandakphu or the highest point, that part is the last 3 kilometers. It can be very knee-jerking experience for you. but you don't feel it. But because I also didn't feel it when I first went there, because the excitement of reaching to the highest point of Bengal is so high, and if you are surrounded by so great landscape all over, so you don't feel the pain. So 75 kilometers, I'll talk about this in detail about the every stop where you can make the stops and the distance between one place to another in a latter part. But just to share some images here, the trekking destination that the landscape that will offer to you. But apart from this landscape, there are another interesting experience that is available in Singalila National Park. In most of the Himalayan trekking destination, when the night time actually becomes very inactive, because it is very cold and very windy, and you don't have much thing to do apart from sitting close to the fire and just try to be safe. But if you can brave the cold, and if you have a passion to look at the sky, just you need to come out from your room and just look up, and you'll be amazed that what Sandakphu sky can offer to you. Although this is not a very perfect sky photo, it's a very amateurish photo that I took. But because of this high altitude and very far from the light pollution, this presents a very clear sky. And it is a best place, one of the best places in the Himalayas to observe the galaxy, nebula, and the star constellations and star trailing. I often want to go back to Sandakphu just for some night sky images, because when you just stand under the sky, you can feel how small you are under the open vastness of this huge universe. And it's a spellbound experience again. And it can be one great place for the sky watchers and sky photographers. So now coming back to the grounds, there is another very interesting element in Sandakphu hike. In most of the popular Himalayan treks that runs mainly through the wilderness or through very beautiful landscape and very high altitude meadows and mountains, the landscape is very beautiful, but you sometimes fail to connect with the people because there are hardly any villages. But in Sandakphu, actually, the humanscape that adds to the landscape and contributes to the landscape to make a very complete Himalayan experience. And when you come to Sandakphu and trek through those villages, you will come to many small hamlets like this, and some of them are as small as like just 10 households, or even three houses makes a village and it has a name. I saw a village having 3 villages, and every village has a name, even the 3 household village. They're so far away and so remote, and there are so hardly any road connection. There are no motorable roads connecting to those villages. And the people, they do not want also, because I talked to some old lady in one of the villages, and I wanted to know whether they want the road to be constructed to their village, and she straightway denied, and they don't want it, because they want the cows to be brought to their village, and the so-called civilization and so many modern things that they actually do not need. They hardly have anything apart from their own house and a small piece of land which they cultivate for their own cultivation, own food. But they are still very happy people. And you can easily see the difference of their happiness from the people when we live in a big cities with so many modern gadgets, we are overwhelmed. We have everything, whatever you need, but we still can't find that happiness that we can find there in those small villages without having anything there. So this is a very interesting part of this Sandakphu. Not only in Sandakphu, there are several other villages in the Himalayan niche and corners of Himalaya, which attracts me a lot. Because a landscape is always a very integral part of our travel destination. We always inquire about the landscape and what mountain is visible and what type of valley, how beautiful it is. But if we can include the humanscape and connect with the local people, so it gives us an insight, and I think it broadens our senses and it makes a very meaningful journey. So that's why I love Sandakphu because of this connection, because meeting these beautiful people, and they're so hospitable. If you walk through these villages and you are not a stranger, you ask for water and you will get much more than water, maybe tea and momos, and as if you are known to them for so many years. So here, this is one of the most beautiful aspect of trekking to Sandakphu Hills. So I always want to go back to these beautiful people, the smiling faces that I always admire. And also you can stay in those villages, proper homestay. The stay can be very basic, but the hospitality and the food that they can prepare for you, the all organic and farm fresh vegetable that they prepare, the simple food, that will definitely add to the experience. But there are other type of accommodation as well. Apart from homestays, you can have a small tea house along the trail, which is also basic, but definitely they're much better than staying in a tent. They have the basic amenities, and you have private room and even private washroom. Water is a luxury there in the Sandakphu Trail, because it is very difficult to find water in winter and in deep summer. But yes, they control the consumption of water. But apart from that, you can be comfortable staying in those places. And also you have some trekkers hut, which is operated by Hill Council and the PWD. They have some guest house and trekkers hut along the trail of Sandakphu and Tonglu in those areas. So now I will again pass it on to Partha, who is going to tell you about the journey, an exciting journey on the Land Rover. So over to Partha.
Yeah, Land Rover and Sandakphu has become synonymous in recent past. But for anyone who is not from this region, who hasn't been to Sandakphu, I mean, Land Rover is basically a British luxury four-wheel drive vehicle, right? And there are stories about how Land Rover came to this region. Many people believe that it was brought by the British, which is both right and wrong. So Land Rover was basically introduced after the Second World War in 1948. The company's name was Rover, and it brought out a Land Rover basically for farmers. Okay, and it was an immediate hit. It was on Willys Jeeps. You might remember we used to have Willys Jeeps. So it was Willys Jeeps frame, and on that this vehicle was developed, and it was immediate hit all over the world, and it came to different parts of the world, including India. How it came to India and how it reached Darjeeling, I'm not very sure about. But mostly what I get to hear about is that after independence, although the colonial Britishers left, in the tea gardens there were lots of British planters. Okay, there were several British independent planters, and there were at least about 25 to 30 British companies which were engaged, and even till 70s, 80s, even till 90s, I think. Jung Sahib, famous Jung Sahib, used to be a British planter during the 90s. So all the British people left, British empire left, the British plantation remained for quite some time. And what I get to hear is that they brought this Land Rovers between 1950 and 1960, 62, 65, and different models of Land Rovers. These were the first initial Land Rovers which came into being. In fact, the story of Land Rover is also interesting. The company's name was Rover, and the Land Rover was just a vehicle. And it became so popular that Land Rover became a series of vehicles, and later on, Land Rover became a company. Later on, it became a unit of Jaguar. And eventually, as you might be knowing, that Jaguar was taken over by Tata Motors. So Land Rover, as of now, is a subsidiary of our Indian company. Tata Group owns it. So, so this is the history of how Land Rovers came into our region. When we were young, even during the 70s and 80s, we have seen Land Rovers all over this region. Okay, mostly in the Siliguri roads or in Darjeeling or all over the hills, you used to get to see it. But the time as new vehicles came in, Land Rovers, these old Land Rovers, gave way to newer vehicles. But they remained in one place. That is from Manebhanjan to Sandakphu route. This route, as we have been mentioning, as Pallab has mentioned, that this route is very difficult to negotiate. And there has been attempts with other vehicles also, but mostly it has never been as successful as in a Land Rover. The body of the vehicle is mostly aluminium, so it doesn't rust. It's been, many of the vehicles have been 65 to 70 years old now. They have been in use most of the time, and they have been doing a very good job. Till about 2000, there were less interest about these Land Rovers. But then interest about vintage cars started growing, and people got to know about these Land Rovers of Manebhanjan from different sources, and people from all over the country started coming here and buying these Land Rovers. And during 90s, we used to have more than 100 Land Rovers in Manebhanjan and its surrounding areas, but many of them were bought off and taken back to Bangalore and Mumbai and Kolkata for vintage car lovers. And now, at present, I believe there are only about 42 vehicles which are left. All of them are not in perfect condition, in the sense many cases the engine has been replaced because it's been many years, 60, 70 years. But the body remains the same. In some cases, even the engine remains intact. The simplicity of the vehicle and its ability to, its four-wheel drive and the ability to negotiate difficult terrain has made it very popular among the drivers there. If the vehicle breaks down on the way, it's very difficult to get a mechanic to go trek for 20 kilometers and get your vehicle repaired. So the drivers have to repair the vehicles themselves, and they have become quite an expert in repairing their vehicles. Recently, in 2018, once the Land Rover became 70 years, completed 70 years of its journey, the company itself brought its team and they did a video on Land Rovers of Manebhanjan. And these are probably the only only Land Rovers of the original lot which are still in driving condition. But the journey on a Land Rover is, of course, not very smooth. I mean, it's not because of the vehicle; it's because of the terrain. Okay, it is very, very steep, and there are boulders all over. So it is. We would recommend that a trek much more than traveling on a Land Rover. Although it is becoming popular slowly, people are going to Sandakphu now on a vehicle also. hiring it from Manibhanjan. In fact, now we get to hear that day visits of Sandakphu is also becoming a possibility, and people are going there in the morning and coming back in the evening. So, but we'd recommend the old way, trekking. If you have to, if you are not in a position to trek, if you have to take a vehicle, you recommend a Land Rover, but it would be a very bumpy ride, and have to have confidence on the driver, because sometimes if you look through your window, you will not get to see any road. You will get to see only the gorge, or maybe a 500 or 1,000 feet down slope. So there you have to have full confidence on the drivers. And sometimes when the road is so narrow that when two vehicles come from opposing sides, there is no way that they can pass immediately. So one vehicle has to go back probably 500 meters or so, or 300 meters, and then give a pass to the other vehicle. This used to be common in the entire hills, but nowadays the road has become much wider in most part of the hills. So, but this still remains true in the Sandakphu region. So Land Rover's owners, they have their association. They are trying to promote Land Rover tools also. There is a Land Rover association stall at Manibhanjan from where you can hire vehicles directly, and the rates are quite reasonable. And there are different rates for night stay, 1 night stay, 2 night stay. If you want to go to up to Pallab, then there is a different rates. But if you are taking a Land Rover, it has to be from the main road to going to Sandakphu and coming back. If you want to go to the diversions, like if you want to go to Srikhola or other places, then of course you cannot take Land Rover. And that would be my part, and I'd hand over back to Pallab again.
Thank you, Partha. So I'm sorry I have to shift all this because without sharing screen, I cannot put my sound on. Okay. So now coming to the actual trekking route of Sandakphu and Pallab. As you can see here, the yellow line, which actually the trek route and also the border between Nepal and India. And if you see it minutely, you can see the yellow line actually has gone to the tip of Kanchenjunga, which is the border, showing the border of Nepal and Indian side. So the trek actually starts from a place called Manibhanjan. There are another entry point to it called Dhotre, which is further 25 kilometers further from Manibhanjan. But the advantage of starting the trek from Dhotre is that you reach the next destination within a very short time, like just 5 or 6 kilometers, and you reach Tonglu, your first destination. But traditionally it starts from Manibhanjan, which is a small market on the border of India and Nepal, and around 30 kilometers from Darjeeling. And then the next destination is Tonglu. Or Tumling is actually on the Nepal side, and you stay in Nepal. And as Partha has already mentioned, that there is open border, and you don't need any permit. Even the foreigners, they also do not need any visa to stay in Nepal side. And it has been going on for several years, since the beginning of this trek route, when it was open for the tourists. The things are like this. There is no immigration center. The foreigners just need to come and just show their passport and take us instant permit from the forest department, and that's it. They can stay in Nepal side, in Tumling and Sandakphu. From Tumling and Tonglu, these are only 2 kilometers apart. Tonglu is actually in the Indian side, and Tumling is on the Nepal side. But the next destination to Sandakphu can be quite long, about 20 kilometers or 21 kilometers walk, which is still possible, but you can break it in a place called Goiribas. which is again the best habitat for red panda and also for satyr tragopan, which is around, it's a very fairly easy trail from Tonglu to Goiribas, which fairly downhill and little bit uphill. But from Goiribas to Sandakphu, there are certain high climb, particularly on the last leg of the journey. And traditionally, all the treks, it ends in Srikola. Earlier, it used to end at Rimbik, but now the Srikola has a car head, and the car can go up to Srikola, so you can take your car back to Darjeeling or Chamon. Or there are several other tea gardens like Tumsong and Ging. So you can end your trek in a nice way, staying in a beautiful tea garden resort. It will be really refreshing, as you can see in this video. It's very serene and lush green tea gardens all over. This is Chamong retreat. There are several other tea garden resort near Singalila National Park, and you can stay in any one of them. So now we are coming to the end of the presentation, and obvious question would be the connectivity, how to reach Singalila National Park and how to go to Sandakphu. Now, first thing you have to come to Bagdogra, which is one of the major gateway to the entire eastern Himalayas. Bagdogra is the main airport to North Bengal, and this is also very well connected with all the major metropolis in India like New Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, and even it has a connection with Guwahati and Dibrugarh with daily flights. Every day there are several flights. Also, the other way to come to this part is you can take a train, overnight train from Kolkata to NGP railway station in Siliguri, or also from Delhi or some other parts of the country, you can have direct train connection. And from here, it's about 3 hours drive to Darjeeling by road, or you can go directly to Manibhanjan and stay there. And then next day you can start your trek. And then coming to the weather, as I mentioned earlier, that Sandakphu can be visited almost entire year apart from the monsoon between June 15 and September 15. But the ideal period is actually to the this spring, which is very good for flowers, the color of flowers like rhododendron and magnolia, March and April, and also for the birds, this is a very good time because it's a mating time and visibility of birds increases quite a lot. And other very good time is the early winter, November and December up to January, because particularly in this time, the sky remains very clear. Although it cannot be 100% clear anytime in the mountains because it is very unpredictable weather condition in that high altitude. But normally for the mountain photography, this is November and December is the best time. And December, January and February can be very cold and snowfall can be frequent occurrence there. Temperature can go down below -8 degree and sometimes -10 degree in some places. So this is the overall idea about our concept of Singalila National Park. Now we'll definitely invite you and we'll look forward to seeing you in these beautiful areas. I hope you have enjoyed it. And thank you once again to India Tourism Kolkata for giving us this beautiful opportunity. And I'll just pass it on to Partha once again if he has any final word before we formally hand it over to Shayok in Kolkata Tourism. So, Partha.
So let's hear from Shayok first, if there is any questions or anything. And my presentation is over. I don't have anything to further to add. Over to Shayok now.
Okay, Shayok.
Thank you, Pallab, Partha, and Vishwarda for this wonderful session. Uh, Wonderful stories, wonderful experience. We have received a couple of good questions, valid questions. One is, what are the best places to stay or camp, like put your tent on during this Sandakphu trekking experience?
So,
Pallab.
should I go ahead? Okay.
Yeah, please.
Yes, there are many options of camping in Sandakphu. Particularly, the first camping, best ideal camping location is Chitre, which is just 2 kilometers above Manevanjan when you start your trek. It's a beautiful meadow. I do not have the photographs at present. Otherwise, I could have shown you. Or if I have time, I can just show you those meadows, which is absolutely ideal for camping. We have the availability of water. And there is a small village of just 3 or 4 houses of a Tibetan family who can provide you water and supply of food, and you can also interact with the local people there. And also you can see the entire Darjeeling town from there, and the Sikkim mountains and other Himalayan ranges. And the next destination of camping for the next day would be somewhere near Tonglu. There also we have beautiful openings which gives you beautiful mountain views. And then in Sandakphu, actually the camping places are little limited, but still we have good camping ground developed beyond Sandakphu top when you are going towards Falut, just a few kilometers ahead of Sandakphu, a place called Chong. You get very good mountain view from there, and it is little away from the main hub of Sandakphu accommodations. But the water crisis can be a problem, so we always recommend people to stay in tea house, because there are plenty of tea houses available in both Tumling and Sandakphu area. Which is much more comfortable than staying in tent. Definitely tenting is an adventure, but it can be very cold and windy at night, particularly when you are staying in the top of the hills in Sandakphu. It can be scary in sometimes that you are going to be blown away by the wind, so that is there. But otherwise, there are comfortable homestays and tea houses all along the route.
Then we have received another query or a statement rather, in which they were saying, is it the only place in Bengal Himalaya from where we can see Mount Everest and Kanchenjunga together?
Yeah, maybe Partha?
No, it is not the only place from this same range. So from the same ridge, from other parts of the ridge also you can see. But yeah, this is the only geographical area. You cannot see it from any other geographical area. I mean, if you are going to a completely different area like Darjeeling or Kalimpong or somewhere else, you won't get to see this. If you want to see Everest and Kanchenjunga together, you have to be in Sandakphu or its surrounding areas.
Okay.
It might be in Nepal side, might be in Bengal side. Okay.
The last one is that the birds you were showing in your stories, in your presentation, was there a photograph of Monal that we had shown in our presentation? Monal.
No, I think Bishop here is there.
Bishop Yoda, if you can just give us this information.
Yeah. Can you please repeat the question, please?
Did you show a image of Monal, the bird Monal, in our?
No, 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 no. No, there was no image of Monal shown in the slideshow. Actually, I'll tell you, the confusion remains because many of the hill people, the local people, the Nepalis, uh, they they sometimes call the Satyr Tragoban to be the Monal. There lies the confusion. Like and the actual Himalayan monal, in local language they call it dafe. So there's a bit confusion with the local names, that whenever you show the photograph of the Satyr Tragopan to the hill people, they might speak in their own common local language and call it the monal. So there lies the confusion.
Thank you, Vishwarupta. Thank you.
Actually,
Thank you, Parthoda. Thank you, Pallabda. And thank you, Vishwarupta, for this wonderful session. We would definitely expect our viewers and tourists in general to go for this Sandakphu trek and visit the Bengal Himalayas when traveling would be possible in reality. And once the international flights and domestic flights are in place, when we start with our full-fledged season, then they must travel. They should travel to these wonderful places, wonderful region of Bengal Himalaya. And further, viewers would like to inform that this was the first chapter of Bengal by the Himalayas, the Dekho Apna Desh campaign of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. In our next edition, next chapter, we'll bring before you Mr. Debashish Chakraborty, the rural tourism leader of rural tourism leader of Darjeeling and Bengal Himalayas, who has developed many homestays, many destinations. He would take us along to the journey of Sitong, Latpanchar, Mongpo, the entire Sitong region, Sitong 1 region. Have you heard of a 350-year-old Buddhist Gumpa? Have you ever heard of a 120-year-old bamboo church just in our Bengal Himalayas, just across the Sevak Bridge? So stay tuned and join us live next Saturday, same time, 6 o'clock at Indian Standard Time for this wonderful experience. Once again, thank you, viewers. If you like our video, if you like our session, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram under the India Tourism Kolkata brand name. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find these sessions. You can go back and just check these wonderful sessions. Some of you might have missed because of joining later or maybe of different time zone. So thank you once again on behalf of Sagnik Chaudhary, Regional Director East, and the entire India Tourism Kolkata. We thank you. Swasth rahiye, swatark rahiye. Namaskar.